we're going to talk about now is management of perennial grasses. A big issue in our improved forages or improved pastures. But the problem I have is people will call me and say, I've got Johnsongrass. However, some folks call this Johnsongrass, some folks call this Johnsongrass, some folks call this Johnsongrass. The problem is, I can give you recommendations for this one because this is what I call Johnsongrass, but it may not work on these other two. So let's talk about how do I ID these and what we call them. And if you'll look in your book, we've got a publication in there with all this information, some really nice pictures for how to separate these three out. But what I call these are Vaseygrass, Johnsongrass, and Guineagrass. Okay? So let's start with identification of Johnsongrass, and then we'll move to the other two. All right, Johnsongrass is a perennial. It has a large underground rhizome. Okay? This is one of the first and easiest ways to tell that you've got Johnsongrass. So you've got this nice white fleshy stem that grows fairly shallow in the soil and runs along. And what it'll do is it'll run along and put up a plant, put up a plant, put up a plant, and you'll all be chained together. And this is one of the best ways that it reproduces and spreads itself is through this material here. And if you ever go into an area and do any tillage and break this rhizome up, every piece you break off makes a new plant, and you can really spread Johnsongrass by doing that. Fortunately, there's not a ton of Johnsongrass in this part of the state. There's not even a lot of Johnsongrass in the south. You move into the Mid-South, North Mississippi, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, and across the Midwest, much bigger issue. But we don't see a lot of it here, but we see enough of it to cause problems, and we need to know what it is. So the first thing is the nice white fleshy rhizome. The second thing that helps you identify it is you look at the leaf. It's a wide leaf with a very prominent, easily seen white midrib. It travels right down the middle of the leaf. Okay? A third feature is there is no hair on this plant. Okay? It's totally hairless. That's another way of identifying it. Another good way, if you'll look, now this one has been recently mowed, so this is all new leaves. But if you get down here and look at some of these older leaves, what you will see is red spots on that leaf. That's a disease called anthracnose, and it is very, very common in Johnsongrass. I will say that if you are looking at a plant that's waist high and it does not have these red disease spots on it, then you are not looking at Johnsongrass. Anthracnose is all across the state, and Johnsongrass is highly, highly susceptible to it, to the place that I've seen it nearly defoliate large plants that have old leaves on them. Okay? So, look for that. The third way is after it puts on a seed head. It puts on a very large, tall, branched seed head. And as you look at these seeds, the seeds are quite large. These are not tiny seeds. And as you look at them, you will notice that these seeds are kind of a white, red, black, mottled color. So not all the seeds are going to have the same amount of black and red on them, but they all will have it. So they're multicolored seeds. So those are the most prominent and easy ways of identifying Johnsongrass. Now, let's move over to this guy here. This is Vaseygrass. Now, if you look at the root system on it, you notice, even though this is a perennial, you do not have those big, long, white, fleshy rhizomes like we see on Johnsongrass. Okay? Secondly, you look at the leaf. The leaf is not as wide. It does have a white midrib that runs the middle of the leaf, but it is not, that midrib is not a real prominent white like you see with Johnsongrass. But also you look at the edge of that leaf and it's going to be really wavy. Okay? Johnsongrass leaves are flat and smooth. You're going to see a wavy kind of a Ruffles potato chip kind of wave in the edge of that leaf. Right? And then also the seed head is quite a bit different. You'll see this seed head, it's kind of floppy, lays over, and it usually lays to one side like this and drops them off on one side. That's what you'll traditionally see. Now, where do I see Vaseygrass? It is most common in wet sites. So these flat woodsy pastures, these wet pastures, I see it a lot on roadsides, in the ditches, and on canal banks. So I generally don't see Vaseygrass in high dry sites. I see it where we've got quite a bit of moisture, pretty wet. But Vaseygrass will not have a lot of those disease issues that Johnsongrass has. Now the third one is Guineagrass. And this is a plant that grows in every citrus grove in Florida. All right? Now, the first time I saw Guineagrass, being that I wasn't from Florida, I said, boy, that is really funny looking Johnsongrass. Because it has a lot of the same appearance from 50 feet away as Johnsongrass. It's upright, it's got a prominent white midrib, but you look at the seed head, and the seed heads are quite a bit different. Okay? Notice you've got large seeds on Johnsongrass, and you've got these smaller green seeds in Guineagrass. Another thing that you'll notice in Guineagrass is you don't have the large rhizomes. It's more of just a traditional fibrous root system. Additionally, younger Guineagrass plants are going to be covered up with hair all over the stem. Now, as these plants get older, a lot of that hair is going to break off. But if you look on this stem, everywhere that you've got a leaf that contacts the stem, right there, you're going to see a big tuft of hair. You will not see that in Johnsongrass. So if it's got hair in it, it ain't Johnsongrass. And then, of course, the seed head is just the telltale giveaway of all three of them.